Hey, this is just a road rant. Thinking about politics and UBI while I'm doing other stuff. But I do just need to make one big point. I just want to stomp for UBI a little bit, and I want to deal with the only real reason that our government won't do it. I want to debunk the facade about the possibility. President Trump, in his utter incompetence, does serve a certain purpose, and he does reveal a lot of things, and he does draw a lot of attention to things that people like me on the left are always complaining about, but nobody listens until somebody on the right says it. And so one of the things that he talked about when he gave that stump speech about we should be giving everybody $2,000 for COVID relief. Number one, I agree with him. I think that's a good idea. I don't think it's uniquely his idea, but a good idea is a good idea. I don't care who it comes from. And that's a big difference between me and the liberals and the Democrats, and it is they care more about the source of the idea than they care about the idea itself. And that's why I left the Democratic Party. It's extremely frustrating. The value of an idea is based on the utility of that idea. It's not based on the source of the idea. Even if they have an ulterior motive or they have an alternate agenda, doesn't matter. A good idea is a good idea regardless of why you're doing it. I would prefer you have noble motives. I would prefer you do it for the right reasons, because that'll give me trust in a system of generating good ideas. But if a system of generating bad ideas every now and then generates a good idea, you still have to notice the good idea and call it a good idea because it is. And the bias on the left, the Democrat supposed left, because I'll just debunk that real quick too. The Democrats are not on the left. Like, stop saying that. The progressives are on the left. So the progressives are affiliated with the Democratic Party only because that is where the power is that leans in our direction. But the progressives are to the left of the Democratic Party. The Democrats are to the center. But to the main point, just because it's Trump saying something, it doesn't make it a bad idea. And if the messenger is your criteria for whether or not an idea is good or not, you don't think correctly. I know that's a bitter pill. I know that's a bitter pill. But if who's saying it is the determining factor of whether or not it's something worth pondering or thinking about, you don't think correctly. You evaluate ideas on the merits. You evaluate them on utility, and you evaluate them on consequences, upside, downside. You look at the pros and cons of an idea, and you evaluate it. He said $2,000 a month, or he said $2,000 as a one-time payment. I agree with it. Those of you who want to make the relativism argument, you'll talk about how there's poorer people in other places, and how that doesn't matter, et cetera, because it could be worse. Obviously, right? It's subjective. But the goal isn't to be better than the worst. The goal is to be okay. And in this country, in such a capitalist society, to be okay, you need money. Whether you want it or not, you need it. And there needs to be systems and processes in place to compensate for the fact that you need it. and you may not always have it. The biggest system is opportunity. We have plenty of that, but it's inadequate. When I talk to people about doing recurring payments to people, aka universal basic income, or anything that you would rebrand it as, but the idea is giving people recurring payments, preferably monthly. Andrew Yang came in with $1,000 a month. I think he's got the best answer. I think $1,000 a month makes sense. Now, before you make the argument about how we can't afford it, you could look back at Trump's speech, and you could look at how much money we spend outside of the United States. If we spent half the money outside the United States, let me rephrase. If we spent half of the money that we spend outside the United States, inside the United States, we wouldn't have to deal with this. So it's not a matter of ability. More than half of the federal budget goes to maintaining the empire. It goes to maintaining our imperial status. In other words, the 50 states get less than 50%. And that's just a fact. We spend more money in foreign aid, or we spend more money in buying and selling and trading things that we don't need. And people say, there's the argument, well, global economy is important. Of course it is. But there's a difference between buying and selling goods from another country and giving them money to maintain control. So know that difference. There's nothing wrong with trade. There's everything wrong with imperialism by economic leverage. We're not going to control the world with money. So, you want to save money? Stop doing that. Stop giving money to other countries to make them a bitch. Number one, it's not working. And number two, where are your priorities at? So don't tell me you can't afford it. That part is 100% bullshit. When the crisis that we're currently dealing with was at its worst, the feds were dumping $1 trillion a day into the banks for it to never actually get to the people who need it, for it to give the facade of a good economy while people are suffering. So don't give me that we can't afford it. But I'm not gonna argue with and debunk we can't afford it, because we can't afford it is not the actual argument. If we couldn't afford it, I would stop talking. But I know we can. So it's not a matter of what we can do, it's a matter of what we will do. We just won't do it. So the question becomes, why won't we do it? And this is where the bitter pill is. We don't want to set the precedent that we can. Our government does not want to set the precedent that helping people financially is doable or even easy. Because I got news for you. It is easy. All the pain and the strain around it, self-inflicted. Yeah, you might have to make a couple of uncomfortable phone calls about the millions of dollars that another country is not getting next year. Make that phone call. Do that press release. Tell, your country here, we have to cut your aid because we have to focus on domestic issues. Be honest. But instead of showing some humility to the world and saying that we can't be your sugar daddy anymore, we do that and we pretend to not have the ability to take care of our own people. If you got money for foreigners, you got money for Americans. Period. And if you got money for foreigners, you should only be paying them after you paid Americans. Sorry. Because the people inside this country are are the society, and these are the people who hold it all together. And I'm not talking about giving money to people who already have it, because that doesn't work. It's useless. It doesn't trickle down. If you give money to people who already have plenty of money, they will just retain it. You got to give money to people who are not already rich, because they already have bills waiting for it. They already have expenses waiting to gobble it up. And the money that they spend it on goes directly into the economy and directly into products and services and people's paychecks, as opposed to going to people who already have it so they can figure out how to leverage it to make themselves richer. It's not the same thing. So I would set the cutoff at a really high number. I would set the cutoff at $1 million. If you're going to means test, I would rather you not means test at all. Because to be honest, I think the best systems are universal. There's no means testing when you go into the library. You know, they don't say, oh, well, if you make six figures, then you have to pay to rent these books. There's no means test, in a grocery store. The fucking price is the price. So if we can set prices, that are universal for money going out, why can't we set prices that are universal for money coming in? But anyway, the real reason that our government doesn't want to help you is because they don't want you to know that they can. They want to continue this facade about how it's not possible, because that's easier to explain than, I see you hurting, I see you suffering, I could help you, and I won't. But that is exactly what is happening. People are suffering, the government could help them, and they won't. Because they're wildly dysfunctional, they only serve their donors, and that means you take care of the rich people. And the rich people are never going to be satisfied. It's not like they're going to get to a point to where they say, okay, the rich people are good, now it's time to take care of the poor people. That will never happen. And rightfully so. Rich people should continuously get richer. No doubt. But not from the government. The government's job isn't to make rich people richer. The government's job is to provide a system that takes care of the well-being of all people. And the focus on that should be the people who have the least. Because that is where the need is. Right? I mean, you go into a hospital, they triage people. And they take care of the people with the worst problems first. They don't want to set a precedent that they can help, because they want to retain the option of not helping in the future. Because not helping is what they want to do. But that's difficult politically. So they have to make it look like they want to help by blaming other people for being the reason stuff isn't getting done. This is actually a really interesting moment in politics, because the House passed the $2,000 version. Now Mitch McConnell, who serves his donors and doesn't give a fuck about the American people, is going to come up with some sort of bullshit debt ceiling argument to defy President Trump, and to defy the will of the people, and to defy the House of Representatives, and still kill the bill. If you think Mitch McConnell is going to give Americans a $2,000 check, yeah, good luck with that. Good luck with that. You had a chance to fix that in his election. So I don't think Mitch McConnell's going to give anybody anything. Well, don't get me wrong. I think he'll give people the $600, because they agreed on that. But you're not going to dictate to Mitch McConnell. He's a heartless creature. So to tie it all together, when we look at the point of UBI, giving everybody $1,000 a month, even the middle class folks who've been brainwashed into thinking that it's not a good idea, because they have like this givers and takers mentality. That's why it has to be universal. That's why means testing is a bad idea. Universal means universal. It means everybody. Now, let's say you're one of the people who don't want to do it because it's like, oh, well, they're going to take it from me. You know, I earned mine, they didn't earn theirs. If everybody got it, including you, where's the taker mentality then? Oh, well, it'll be taken from me in some other way. Sure it will. Taxes, etc. But it'll also be given to you. And depending on your income, it'll be taken from you less than it's given to you. So the majority of people will have a net gain. Only the millionaires will have a net loss. And I don't mean the millionaires in terms of $1 million estate. I'm talking about $1 million income. Not as a couple, as an individual. But let me ask you this. Let's say you make $100,000 a year. I'll play the game. Let's say you make $200,000 a year. Hell, 3. If I gave you $1,000 a month, would that be a good thing? You're afraid that if we give people on a lower income side of things $1,000 a month, that they would become lazy or lazier. If we give people $1,000 a month, they're going to spend it into this economy that we're so proud of. And if you think that people are going to get $12,000 and not work, ask yourself, would you not work for $12,000 a year? No, you wouldn't. And the reason you wouldn't is because you have a higher standard of living. So do the majority of people. 80% of us will not be anywhere near comfortable with $1,000 a month. But we could put it to good use. We could use it to get out of debt and the predatory systems thereof. We could use it to accomplish something that we otherwise wouldn't be able to. We could use it to do things for our children that we otherwise wouldn't be able to. We could use it to solve problems that don't have to wait for another paycheck. If you wouldn't quit working, if you receive $1,000 a month UBI, do not assume other people would, because they won't. And the small amount of people that would, helping the few people that don't deserve it is worth it to help the people that do. Also, it's not even an argument of selfishness because that includes you. That's all for now. Thanks.